You're listening to Interchain FM, the Cosmos radio station. If you're seeking alpha in the Cosmos or interoperability space, look no further. I'm your host, Chjango Unchained, and today we're here with some members of the Solana ecosystem. We're here with Neon EVM and deBridge. So it's exciting to have you guys here. It's a little change of pace. We usually have almost exclusively Cosmos projects. So yeah, welcome to the show. Yes.
Hey guys,
so
thanks for hosting us.
why don't you start with your background? We'll start with Yuri from Neon EVM. Your background and how you got into crypto.
I got into crypto together with Neon. So we started in 2021. Project started from idea that Ethereum developers struggled from high cost of transactions, low speed, and at the same time we had a Solana with high speed transactions, with low costs. And we decided to build, first of all, proof of concept and demonstrate it. It was demonstrated by the end of 2021. And at that time, it was like fundraising, and we started to build our MVP, and it was ready on DevNet in early 2022. But after that, it took almost 1 year to build the whole comprehensive infrastructure to allow all Ethereum dApps to run like in EVM ecosystem on Solana. Currently on Neon EVM is quite a big team of, let's say, 50 professional team members.
Yeah, my name is Alex. I'm CEO and co-founder at deBridge. I started my crypto journey back in 2016. I was studying in university back then, was just, interested in the blockchain as a technology, started to dive in because I did a lot of like software development and just like blockchain space seemed to be exciting. And my journey started from the BitShares ecosystem. I was quite active.
BitShares.
Yeah, BitShares. It's like many of listeners may not know what BitShares is, but like I would say it's very first DeFi project because there was no the term DeFi back then, but like BitShares created the first algorithmic stablecoin and the first DAX. It was like dedicated chain, and yeah, it seemed to be very exciting. And like I just started to learn, about the blockchain space from BitShares ecosystem, and then in 2017, together with another deBridge co-founder Yaro, we founded the blockchain development company called Phenom, and we were basically providing various blockchain development services and build a couple of products. The one that is probably one of the most prominent, the crypto custody solution that we kind of provided and sold to the Swiss bank. But yeah, starting from being like developers, and some sort of development agency, we always had this idea in mind that like at some point we should start working on our own product. And like the reason why we started to work on deBridge is because like we faced the problem of decentralized cross-chain liquidity transfer, because we always had to use the centralized exchanges, and we realized that there is like a ton of custodial risks and that there is a clear need for the infrastructure that would enable permissionless transfer of data and liquidity. And that's why we started. Like the journey on deBridge started at the beginning of 2021, ever since we won the Chainlink Global Hackathon. And yeah, it's been almost 3 years, and it's been an exciting journey.
Wow. So it took you 3 years of heads down development to finally arrive at a working product at deBridge.
Yeah, because like cross-chain space has been super challenging, as you know, with all these security incidents and overall like inefficiencies. And the stage one of deBridge was all about building, right? Our goal was to create very secure, scalable, and capital efficient infrastructure that can be used to solve any cross-chain needs, right? And the main use case, of course, is the spot trading, basically bridging. But like if you think about bridging, it's in fact kind of spot trading market that is enabled in a non-custodial fashion.
Yeah, right. So spot trading a native asset for the equivalent synthetic asset on the destination chain.
I wouldn't say so, because like if you talk about cross-chain interoperability in general, there are three main verticals. And like in deBridge, we are trying to differentiate them because like many of the bridging teams are trying to solve all these problems simultaneously, when in fact, these three verticals should be approached in a very different manner. Like the first vertical, which is like foundational one, is the transfer of authenticated messages. One smart contract on chain A just needs to transfer specific packet of data or the message to the smart contract on chain B, and the receiver should authenticate and like verify who was the sender. It's like the same way as we are sending the messages on the Telegram, right? And messaging is the foundational pillar. The second one, which is also important, is the cross-chain asset custody that enables the ability to issue derivatives or synthetic representations on the assets from other chains or on the native assets in general. So as an example of asset custody solutions like USDC, right? Because USDC is a derivative on American dollar, where Circle governs the custody solution. But in fact, like when somebody issues the wrapped asset or uses bridge like to kind of mint the asset, these projects or users interact with the asset custody bridges, which are enabled by the second vertical. And third vertical, which is also very interesting and like probably most used, to the cross-chain trading, right? Assuming that asset is already deployed or custodied somehow, we just want to enable simple exchange operation and sell specific amount of asset on chain A for specific amount of asset on chain B. And the third one is enabled by value transfer bridges or so-called like cross-chain trading infrastructures. And I think that the main problem of the cross-chain space is that people confuse the three verticals because they all are called by the word bridge, but in fact these three kind of pillars are very different, and like everyone should understand that and differentiate whenever like he hears the word bridge.
You don't think that a bridge could do all three if it were properly abstracted enough to allow for general message passing?
I think that message passing is the foundation, and two others can be built on top of it. And it can be built in different ways. And that's what we basically do in deBridge. Like deBridge itself is the cross-chain messaging infrastructure. For asset custody, we have dport, the solution that allows easily, lock the native asset on one chain and mint the D asset or like synthetic representation across all the other chains. But again, this is just one way to perform custody, because like one project wants to issue the token, they can just build their own custody smart contract, and like lock the asset in one chain and then send a cross-chain message to another chain to mint that synth representation. And there are many nuances here in terms of custody, because the main problem that like projects should not rely on one specific provider, but they rather should kind of aggregate multiple message providers for additional security, because like custody is not something that should be used by regular users. It's like normal users do not have Circle account or like Tether institutional account. They just trade through exchanges. Same for the cross-chain space. Like users do not need to interact or use the custody. This is something that should be used by professional market makers, because like custody solutions require more gas. They require like maximal security, and users just use this like value transfer bridges or trading infrastructures in order to do the simple exchange operation. So yeah, basically messaging is foundation, while custody plus cross-chain value transfer layers can be built on top of messaging, or can be built without it, like Circle, right? Because Circle in their CCTP, which is also custody solution, they don't rely on any message providers.
I'll turn to Yuri for your questions about Neon EVM. Why is deBridge your Neon EVM's preferred provider for bridging between Ethereum and the Solana ecosystem?
Yeah, it's mostly up to all benefit that Alex already mentioned. So first of all, deBridge allows to transfer any liquidity without locking and minting. It means user have no risks of losing any assets in case of any potential vulnerabilities or etc. And it means when you don't have wrapped assets, it can't be detected or influence any risks of vulnerabilities. Also, I would say deBridge is one of the fastest bridges with a very seamless integration and a very, I would say, from the end user perspective, it allows for end users to bring the liquidity between chains without any frictions. It was the basic points, and the most crucial, bridges is most vulnerable parts of current blockchain ecosystem. And the bridge currently, correct me, Alex, if I'm wrong, but currently we won't found any vulnerabilities in the bridge, despite of other bridges like wormhole, like multi-chain.
We treat security super seriously, and deBridge is one of the only infrastructures, and probably the only one actually, that has 100% of the uptime, 100% of the message deliverability, and 0 discovered vulnerabilities. Because security in the cross-chain space is crucial. It's super important. And deBridge is secure not only in terms of how we approach it with audits and security practices, it's also secure by design, right? Because for our cross-chain trading infrastructure called DLN, we don't use liquidity pools. Our trading sort of protocol is based on zero TVL design, which is quite unique. In deBridge, we pioneered the cross-chain intents model, where instead of using pools for settlement, we use the network of private market makers. So whenever a user wants to do the bridging or liquidity transfer, he simply creates an intent, which is basically a limit order. And as soon as intent is created, we have the network of private market makers that track all the intents. And if intent is profitable, they immediately fulfill it on the destination chain. And that provides us with a couple of big advantages. First, the speed of settlement. We provide the best cross-chain UX on the market, because whenever users are trading, they have kind of similar experience that they have on centralized venues. Settlement happens in seconds, sometimes in milliseconds. And second advantage is that the solution is very scalable, right? We are not limited by the bottlenecks of liquidity pools. And we don't have intermediary pools in general. Market makers settle directly from their balance sheets, from their wallet. And that makes the capital efficiency to be way higher, because we don't need to incentivize liquidity providers and pay any kind of token incentives continuously in time. Because this is sort of just-in-time liquidity model where market maker just incentivize because they can execute arbitrage or spread from the intent that they're fulfilling. And at the same time, that makes the overall design to be way more secure, because if you don't have liquidity pool, there is nothing to hack, right? The whole attack surface is drastically minimized from the multi-million-dollar liquidity pool to the current amount of trades that are being settled at this specific moment, right? But since the settlement time is very short, just seconds or milliseconds, the overall attack vector is way lower than for classical bridges. So yeah, that means that the design of the bridging infrastructure is also important to kind of guarantee the security.
As soon as bridge is a keystone of any EVM ecosystem, so multi-chain ecosystems, so we decided to go with one of the not hacked yet and one of the most innovative bridge. Never hacked, yeah.
Yuri is Yuri is fan of optimistic designs, right?
Optimistic designs.
Yeah, have not been hacked, and we'll never be hacked, and that's we are, and we are doing everything from our side, to prevent that, and super proud that we kind of maintain this high security standards, because even uptime is crucial for the cross-chain messaging infrastructures. And again, we are the only one with 100% uptime and 0 discovered vulnerabilities.
To what extent was this intent system inspired by Namada?
Yeah, I think in our case, intents are more inspired by projects like CowSwap, and OneInch, because CowSwap team is the one who pioneered intents for the same chain trades. And they show that like asynchronous design may work better because for trading or same chain trading, you cannot optimize simultaneously for multiple criteria, right? For the block space and like getting your transaction included into the block, plus for the price discovery. So when you use synchronous model, where you just send like transaction to trade through AMM or liquidity pool, we got to specify slippage tolerance, right? So we don't know the exact price that we'll receive. And that's where MEV comes up, just due to synchronous design. And 1inch and CowSwap show that like with asynchronous approach, we don't need to kind of optimize for the block space. We can specify the price that we want to receive for the trade and then wait until market makers or so-called solvers will fulfill this intent. And building cross-chain, we've realized that like cross-chain space itself is asynchronous by design because blockchains are kind of isolated environments, right, that are not synchronized. And there is no chance to build synchronous models that are using AMMs or pools on top of asynchronous infrastructure. That's why intent model fits really well the cross-chain trading, right? Because like liquidity pools will always be the bottleneck in terms of scalability, security, and capital efficiency. If you look at the bridges, they all need liquidity. Like Stargate is a good example, right? It got like $350 million of liquidity locked. And liquidity has price. Like US treasuries right now are paying 5.5% of the interest. And bridges are obviously way riskier ventures. And LPs that provide liquidity to bridges expect not less than 15% of the APR. And if we count like 15% from $350 million means that Stargate bears $52 million of cost on the liquidity annually, right? That does not make the model to be like scalable or capital efficient. And we've realized that like in order to kind of preserve the scalability and capital efficiency at the same time, we should leverage this intent-based model, which is also way more secure, and plus zero TVL approach. So yeah, that's how we actually came up with the idea. Because like the first version, after we launched deBridge as a messaging layer, the first version of the value transfer protocol was called DSwap, and it was using liquidity pools that we leveraged on Curve. And the problem there was like how do we bootstrap liquidity in those pools? Because we never wanted just like to dilute token, and distribute incentives, because like incentivization model that is continuous in time does not work anymore for bridges. And we realized that like step number 2 will be to optimize for the scalability and capital efficiency, and like intents are going to work very well. And now we see that like deBridge pioneered actually this kind of approach, and now many other bridge providers are starting to pivot toward intent-based model as well. And I think that like eventually for the cross-chain space, everyone will use intents and potentially zero TVL design as well.
I'm curious to know what your how you conceive of the edge cases, or like how you reason about them when a bridge is intimately tied to an economic model. The bridges are meant to act as a transport layer, right, for messages. And so if there's no demand side from market makers to arbitrage this market, or if there's this economic surface for someone to maliciously drive a price up or down, then wouldn't that potentially hurt the functionality of something that's where its primary utility is meant to transfer assets or general messages?
First, like messaging trading are 2 different verticals, right? And there are many different nuances between them. Like for messaging, what really matters is like decentralization, right? Because like absolutely all message transfer layers, like generalized message passing protocols, bear the risk of collusion of validators, because they all inevitably have validation or consensus layer. Like people call them like validators, guardians, or like oracles and relayers. But in fact, these are some sort of validators who are in charge of consensus.
Okay, yeah, wait, let me stop you right there. So maybe I'm not understanding your architecture correctly, because your deBridge is basically, it's like Axelar, right? You have it's your own blockchain.
No,
and
we don't have blockchain, and that's also important.
Wait, then what do you mention validators for?
Yeah, because like you don't necessarily need blockchain to have validation layer, right? Because like, again, for bridges, like for message transfer layers, it's very important to understand how decentralized they are and how validation is designed. Because like most of the bridge providers have their own intermediary blockchain for consensus. But in deBridge, we have like very different vision. We are saying, look, guys, why do you need consensus or like intermediary bottlenecks if you still need to settle consensus on the destination chain? Like when you're bridging from chain A to chain B, you still need to somehow validate the consensus of the bridge in chain B, right? And then like, why do you need the intermediary chain if the validation happens like on the destination chain? And the way we designed messaging is that like validators do off-chain validation. They just listen to events or messages that are sent on the source chain. They sign the message with their private key and store signature into RVIF, right? And anyone who has signatures of validators can deliver or execute the message on the destination chain, right? So the consensus is kind of achieved off-chain, where validators just make their signatures public, but the execution or settlement happens on the destination chain itself, where user or any keeper can just pass all the signatures, and smart contract will validate that consensus was settled for this specific message indeed. And this kind of design provides a few fundamental advantages. First, unlimited throughput. So validators can sign any number of messages per second because like cryptographic signature is very simple operation, and the storage happening nearly instantly with RVIF. Second advantage here is the gas efficiency. So validators never need to broadcast any transactions on chain. They bear zero gas cost. They just produce cryptographic signatures. And third is security, right? Because when validators do not interact with each other, they don't communicate, there is no attack vector, because like no one knows where validators host their node, like deBridge node, and where they perform this signing. That's why there is no way to attack the infrastructure or compromise validators. And this off-chain validation design is quite unique because it enables things like EOS, the service that we have that called like interoperability as a service that allows any blockchain to plug into deBridge, just because we don't need to integrate like manually with every single chain, because validators don't need to kind of run the blockchain, broadcast transactions. They just perform off-chain validation. And Neon is our proud first customer for this EOS model. So any blockchain can like initialize subscription and just plug into deBridge without asking our permission or like begging anyone to integrate. And validators just like automatically pick up the chain and start validating messages that are being sent. So this kind of EOS and off-chain validation combination makes the cross-chain infrastructure to be very scalable at the same time, still being very secure, because like RPCs for all those chains that are connected through EOS are provided by blockchain teams themselves. So we don't need to bear kind of responsibility for security of those RPCs, for stability of those RPCs. Just validators use what is exactly what is specified when like EOS subscription is initialized.
Okay, so first of all, how are these validators incentivized to run the nodes of both source and destination chains? So I'm assuming Ethereum and Solana. And two, how does one become a validator? Or is this like a permissionless set that somehow the deBridge protocol just understands is part of the set that's like attesting to Arweave?
No, so first, validators do not need to run the full nodes of every chain that we support. And that's the beauty of this approach. Like the validation is very low cost, right? Like for chain, they can use the public RPC providers such as QuickNode, like Helios, I don't know, Trident, or many others. And they can even set up consensus between them. So they run deBridge node. That's the only thing that they need to kind of run on their own infrastructure. And then they specify RPCs of the chains that we support. And for additional security, they can use like a set of different RPCs and set up the consensus between them. Let's say 2 out of 3 between like QuickNode, I don't know, Infura, and some others. And that makes the kind of validation to be really low cost, right? And like when someone plugs into deBridge through EOS model, they just need to provide this RPC that all validators will be obliged to use. Talking about incentivization. So right now in deBridge, we do not incentivize validators yet, right? So they don't get any profits or benefits, but it's expected that like in the future, once we pass the governance of the infrastructure to token holders, they may incentivize validators for providing these services during the last 3 years, right? Because like we started to work on deBridge like in 2021 and launched on mainnet in February 2022. So yeah, and so far deBridge validators are not incentivized, but like the main risk is like, and that's the risk for absolutely all messaging infrastructures, like why validators will not collude, right? And that's exactly why for infrastructures, you don't need to maximize number of validators, but you need to maximize their financial guarantees. There should be some slashable collateral that is provided. And after we have TG, after we decentralize governance, we expect that like part of the all protocol profits that we generate on deBridge will go to validators and those who delegate liquidity to them. And that liquidity will be in form of liquid collateral such as ETH or USDT, and if validators collude, they get slashed by governance. And again, to become the validator.
Yeah, you're telling me right now that how much volume in USD value is deBridge doing right now?
So in total, we've done just today. Actually, we crossed $500 million in total trading volume. But it's not only about volume.
You're telling me that in total, the deBridge validators have transferred that much value, and there's no financial disincentive for them to. I mean, there's nothing that's up for slashing right now, and it's just like purely trust.
So you should understand again that there are like few types of bridges, right? deBridge validators do not transfer anything; they just validate messages, right? And message can be anything, just like information.
But they're the ones that are powering the deBridge protocol, which is transferring.
They're powering DLN, our cross-chain trading infrastructure. So the trading or like liquidity bridging happens on DLN, or DSwap Liquidity Network. This is like the solution that enables this third vertical. And DLN is basically high-performance cross-chain trading infrastructure, which is built on deBridge. And it's using messaging. But it's using messaging in a quite unique way, right? So the messages themselves are triggered by professional market makers. So when user does the trade, he just initiates intent, which is immediately settled by market maker. Users do not do any messaging. They just do intents, right?
Okay.
Which can be guessed.
Yeah, this is not okay. So if someone's trying to move like USDT from Ethereum onto Neon EVM, how do they just do that in a straightforward manner? Like they have to go through DLN before it gets onto Neon EVM?
So you just open our app, which is app.debridge.finance, right? You create, it looks like regular swapping interface. You specify the pair that you want to trade, let's say USDT on Arbitrum for...
I'm just trying to transfer money from Arbitrum onto Neon EVM. How can I do that?
You open the interface, you pick the chain from as Arbitrum, you specify the amount of asset that you want to provide, and you specify the amount of asset that you want to receive.
I'm asking about the protocol infrastructure.
Okay. Like from the protocol level, here's how it works, right? You interact with a DLN source smart contract on Arbitrum, where you set up all the parameters for the trade. You say you specify what amount you provide on Arbitrum and what amount you want to receive on Neon. So you create the intent, right? And the intent looks like following. Look, guys, I'm giving anyone 100 USDT on Arbitrum.
So my order needs to fill on Arbitrum in order for my equivalent value to appear on Neon EVM.
Yeah, you initiate on Arbitrum, you're sending transaction on the source chain, and it's getting fulfilled by market makers on the destination chain on Neon.
Right.
So basically,
so what I'm suggesting is, like, don't you see the risks of that kind of model? First of all, you need to have market makers who are willing to arbitrage, basically. Just in order for someone to transfer assets over your bridge. So you're adding an additional economic layer to a straight transfer, like move from, one EVM to another EVM.
It's not really economical layer. Look, when you do the transaction, right, in finances, you need someone who will settle this transaction. There are different ways to approach that. Like in classical bridges, it's settled by liquidity pool, right? Which is like liquidity sitting in the smart contract on the destination chain, which is incentivized. In our case, it's settled by someone,
or it's like a straight minting, mint and burn, or
mint burn is a different thing. It's a custody, right? Like you don't want to receive some non-liquid wrapped asset on Neon. You want to receive native USDC, which is like that got mass adoption and used by all the protocols.
Right. So okay, if that's the case, then it's similar to Stargate in that you would or no, not similar to Stargate, in that you would need existing liquidity on. So basically, what I'm suggesting is this model is not possible for new chains to adopt. Well, those new chains would first need to solve the chicken or the egg problem and already have liquidity on their side in order for the deBridge protocol to work with an existing chain.
Yeah, just we are going now in a bit different direction. There's like users side of thing, and there's like chains side of thing. When you start your own blockchain or roll up, you need to enable interoperability. You need a bridge, right? And you can leverage our EAS, like interoperability as a service, to initialize subscription and get all these three pillars of interoperability, like messaging, asset custody, and trading, right? But like asset custody is super important. And you may want to have your own canonical trustless bridge, which does not introduce any additional security assumptions, right? That's why like Arbitrum has the canonical custody, like Optimism got some canonical custody as well. But like as soon as custody is solved, you just need to enable the trading, right? And that's where DLN comes in, so that users can initialize intents or trades from any other chains into your chain, and market makers will figure out how to fulfill that intent. So they will use canonical custody to bridge liquidity, let's say, from Solana to Neon, and then get your intent fulfilled. And as a user, you don't need to know anything about custody. You don't need to think about complex routes, like how to get your liquidity from Ethereum to Neon through centralized exchanges plus Solana, because market makers or solvers like abstract that all away. And you just specify what exactly you want to receive as a user. Like I want this token address, which is like native USDC or any other token in this specific amount. And you specify intent, and like solvers get that executed. That's basically how it works.
Well, let's say there's a black swan event, and imagine Terra Luna, for whatever reason, is on Solana. It's running on Neon EVM, and the depeg happened, and now massive amounts of people are trying to withdraw UST and pretend deBridge supports UST. What do you imagine the attack vector that DLN poses when people want to mass withdraw?
No, there is no attack vector. There is open market, which is way more efficient than in classical bridges. Like Terra is one example, but we can talk about Phantom, right? Like multi-chain was the canonical custody solution for Phantom. And when multi-chain blew up, like liquidity drained like instantly. Nobody could like bridge out the USDC, and USDC and none of the bridges actually worked because those who use AMMs such as Stargate and others immediately run out of liquidity because like everyone was bridging out of Phantom and like use whatever liquidity left there. And when all the bridges suspended support of Phantom, we actually added it to enable the open market, right? So anyone could trade the USDC on Phantom to USDC on other chains. It just the market had a discount laid in, right? Because market makers fulfilled USDC on Phantom only if they could hedge the risk. So basically, they fulfilled with 20% discount in order to kind of cash out through other assets. So it's just like you can think about DLN as about order book of intents. It's kind of classical order book model. If the asset on one chain has some systemic risks, let's say USDC, it will immediately get started to be traded with discount to the USDC on another chain. Users will still be able to kind of to bridge or to trade, just they will pay a bigger premium because it's an open market that will determine what premium should be there and how the systemic risks are included. So the beauty of this approach is that like the things like DLN, the order book of cross-chain intents, allows to price in any systemic risks, which is not possible on the classical bridges that are based on liquidity pools.
Are either of you familiar with Orchain?
Yeah, of course.
The model of bridging here is similar to Thorchain in that there's this extra economic layer where in order for you to bridge in Bitcoin onto Thorchain, it gets paired with their native token called Rune. In the base case where there's no adversarial activity happening, it works. But in the adversarial case, this kind of breaks down, assuming the perfect adversary has enough size to basically drain the pool and mess with the price.
Yeah, our model is very different from Thorchain. They use liquidity pools, like they use kind of liquidity provided by LPs. They indeed like pair with this like Rune token. We don't do that. We just enable simple market.
It's a difference between limit orders and an AMM model. But the point is that you're tying an exchange to message transfers.
We're not tying. Like any cross-chain transfer is a trade. That's what's important to understand, right?
Right.
You may call it bridging, but in fact, it's a spot trading where you say, "Look, guys, I'm giving asset on one chain, and I want to receive the asset on another."
But but the redemption is predicated on the price on that exchange of that trade.
You can specify any price. You can say, "I'm giving $1, and I want to receive 1 million." It just nobody will fulfill your intent.
If you're malicious and you're wanting to manipulate the prices, you can.
How do you do that?
By market make. Let's say you put in an insane price, and then you fill it yourself, and then you drive the price up or down.
You cannot drive. I mean, you will fulfill your own trade. You will pay fees, but the market will be there still. You know, the difference between like DLN and classical order books is that you can fulfill any order, right? Any intent. You don't need to pick like only bid and ask from the top of the order book, but you can fulfill even some intent at the bottom. But the thing is that you want to get the best price. So if you fulfill someone's intent, you always take the one with the best price, where you can execute the...
I'm talking about an attack scenario where you're an attacker and you're not looking for the best price. And you're actively trying to manipulate the price of this market.
To manipulate, I got to create some intent, right? Or big order, or I have to fulfill trades of someone else. It's the same, like how do you manipulate on the centralized exchanges? It's the same basically concept. What will be the attack surface?
It's a question of how much size the attacker has.
Not really. I mean, there is no attack vector here at all. You got to create some two things, right? You can be maker or taker. Like if you're a maker, you specify exact price that you want to receive. And the only way to fulfill your intent is to provide the exact same amount of asset on the destination chain. If you're a taker, right, you get to fulfill someone's intent. And you will never fulfill intents that are not profitable for you, right? You can manipulate price only in the bad way that will make you lose some funds and fulfill intents for someone at the better price.
Yuri, let me ask you. So I'm assuming that Neon EVM has looked into all the other different bridging protocols. Tell me about the thought process.
We are choosing our first bridge for almost, I would say, 1 year or half a year. We were comparing Portal or Wormhole, choosing between them, Axelar, Stargate, and at that point, at the time, we had native
Multi-chain.
multi-chain. Yeah, forgot that name.
So all the protocols that are available on Solana.
Yeah, almost all. Not all. If I remind correctly, Axelar didn't available on Solana, and I'm not sure about Stargate. But Wormhole was available at that point, and a multi-chain. We were comparing between security side, and here we compared by amount of vulnerabilities and money stolen for each protocol. Second, it was how easy to integrate with the chain. For instance, for Wormhole, you have to incentivize all guardians to integrate your chain. So it means you should incentivize about 19 guardians. It's a very good solution, but you have to do a lot of work to incentivize 19 different entities, I would say. Third point, it's should the users or institutional players or someone else, should someone bring liquidity pools? Because really, all liquidity pools cost a lot of money, as Alex mentioned. So among all these criteria, we decided to go with deBridge for all mentioned reasons. And one crucial point here, concerning liquidity. You mentioned chicken and egg problem. You mean where initial liquidity came from, if I got correctly. So currently, specific for Neon case, we have the same liquidity as Solana has. So for instance, if Solana has native USDC minted on Solana, in Neon, you can operate with the same USDC. We provide direct access to native Solana liquidity. So for users, for Neon EVM users, it means they can transfer any liquidity, any USDC, native USDT, to native USDC and USDT on Solana.
You touched on my point exactly, which is this could only work in an ecosystem like Solana and Ethereum. Whereas, coming from the Cosmos space, we have a bunch of projects spinning up new app chains all the time. So if you're a new chain, you're not Solana. Okay, so you have zero liquidity on your chain. Therefore, if you're just starting, you wouldn't be able to do a cold start using this bridging model because you have no liquidity to begin with.
And you don't need to, because again, before it's not even chicken and egg. It's it's like 1, 2, 3. Before you get
it's a cold start problem.
Before you get to trading, you need to enable custody, and to enable custody, you need messaging, or you need your own canonical bridge for Cosmos, right? If you have messaging, you can have custody. So, for example, with EOS, you can use our custody solution called dePort, or you can build your own custody smart contract that will lock asset on the native chain and mint the derivative on the destination chain, right? And once custody is enabled, you have this like liquidity rails to allow market makers and anyone to bring assets and mint them. You can leverage the cross-chain trading. So in case of Neon and deBridge integration, Neon already had this like custody rails. They had this solution called Neon Pass that allows to bridge any USDC and Neon native token itself from Solana to Neon. So that's why we didn't need to enable wrapped assets or like dePort for Neon, even though it's available, Right now, anyone can bridge or custody any asset from the chain that we already support to Neon through deep work. But that's not needed because like normal users just want to get exact native asset that they want to receive, such as like native USDC or USDT. So custody there, in this case, like this second vertical that we enable like deep work, whereas custody is not needed because custody is solved. They just need to leverage the cross-chain trading, which is very fast and very efficient through the zero TVL design with intent-based model.
Since we're short on time, we want to talk about the Solana halt. How did you deal with that? That was, that happened this week. This week is the week of February 8th. It happened 2 days ago. Validators relatively quickly spun up the chain within 30 hours. How was the experience like dealing with that as a service user?
First of all, to be clear here, how Neon EVM works on Solana. So it works like a smart contract on Solana. It means Neon EVM uses the same consensus layer as Solana uses. So it means when Solana stopped, Neon EVM exactly stopped at the same time. So we had the same outage as Solana had. It means for our users, just to be clear here, as for Solana, as we use their consensus layer, for all Neon users, all transactions stopped, and we weren't able to process any transactions on Neon EVM. But no data losses or money losses for sure. We had to communicate with our community and say just like, while we have Solana outage, unfortunately we can't process any transactions, but everything will be fine, and you won't lose any money, any data, or anything else. And as soon as Solana succeeded with their outage, Neon EVM started at the same time, started the process from the beginning of outage. So we dealt mostly like commenting to our community that sometime it happens. Fortunately, last time it was 1 year ago. So next time will be, yeah, maybe won't happen, maybe.
How does this affect project running on Solana from a business standpoint? This part is obvious that if you want the same functionality of the EVM, sure, you could get faster to finality, but you don't necessarily benefit from liveness guaranteed by the Ethereum chain, and it's cheaper gas. But then when something critical happens, when the underlying chain halts, especially when you need something to go through and that disrupts your service for almost 36 hours, how does that affect the feasibility of running a whole business infrastructure? It's not that feasible to say like, well, let's hope it doesn't happen again. I think it's like a matter of, it's a property of their blockchain, so it will happen again in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I think it's just a trade-off, of Solana, because like Solana itself is a super powerful chain, right? And it's quite new. Like Solana is like 3 years old, or like when was the
3
DG?
years.
Yeah, it's like super new, and it's like one of the fastest growing blockchain ecosystem. But at the same time, it's quite unique, right? It's like built from the ground up. And what I really like about Solana, and I'm building like across many different chains and many ecosystems, including like EVMs and like various rollups, like Solana got the fastest decentralization to finality ratio. Like transactions on Solana are getting confirmed, like irreversibly confirmed very quickly. Same happens on rollups, right? But like with rollup, the problem that like it's confirmed by centralized sequencer. And on Solana, you have like thousands of validators. But like the trade-off with that, like
thousands of a lot of overlap of the same validators. So really it's like a variety of maybe like, 30 to 100 different validators.
Yeah, I didn't do this kind of research, and like you never know how many people like run Ethereum nodes as well.
Yes.
There is always like overlap. But in general, like Solana, maybe it's not like as decentralized as Ethereum, but it's like definitely one of the most decentralized blockchain ecosystem. And I personally like cannot imagine any transaction to be censored on Solana, right? It will be very difficult, like to make validators to censor something or like forge any transaction. And the Solana got quite unique approach in terms of how they maintain state consistency. The safety is always put as priority over liveness. If there's any inconsistent state change in the blockchain, it simply halts, right? On other chains, it's like it forks or something happens, like on Solana.
It's the same model as the Cosmos PBFT model.
Yeah, I guess so. And like that's what we saw like last year and this year, right? That happens. That's a trade-off. And Solana is working on solution. What's the solution, right? The solution is like client diversity. Right now, there is like the original client for the Solana chain, but they work on Firedancer, and they will be third one. And if you have more clients, you have less chance for the bugs or inconsistencies that are introduced by like new features or new releases of the validation nodes. So I think that they're moving like in the right direction. And just like there is some period when the blockchain ecosystem needs to become more mature. I don't think that like this kind of halts is the biggest problem for Solana. In my opinion, the biggest problem is actually the lack of the secure custody, the lack of this kind of liquidity rails on how to bring assets from Ethereum to Solana, because everyone are like right now got to rely on the single bridge providers or infrastructure providers, and there's like a ton of risk associated with that, like custody enabled by wormhole or other infrastructures. And what we are trying to propose, like the custody solution that aggregates multiple message providers under the same umbrellas through message aggregation, but at the same time, the governance itself over the custody should be enabled by the projects who adapt those assets. Because the biggest risk in terms of custody is that like governance layer and transport layer are enabled by the same entity, right? And if something happens, it will be the same situation like with FTX, where FTX govern all these minted assets and they custodied them at the same time, right? So in order to prevent that, there should be like secure custody solution, which is important to solve on the ecosystem level, so that all the projects adapt like more secure tokens, more secure assets. But in terms of like liveness and all this halts, I think that like by time we'll see like drastic improvement. Again, like the advantage of using Solana is speed, it's time finality, right? And the like transaction cost.
And parallelization. So Solana provides parallelization, and as soon as Neon uses this parallelization, so Neon seems like to be the first parallelized EVM on the top of Solana.
How many dApps are running on Neon EVM now?
We just start growing, so it's only 10 dApps. It's keystone dApps like Dexes, stablecoins, lending.
Lots of DeFi use case?
Yeah, lots of DeFi, yeah.
I guess Aave just had a signaling voting and Neon deployment as well, right?
You said Aave deployed on Neon?
No. It was temperature check on our governance, and we passed temperature check with our governance.
Oh, you're saying the Neon EVM governance?
No. It was our governance and temperature check on the our governance. So it means pre-voting.
Neon EVM governance, I guess you would call it Neon EVM DAO or whatever you call it, proposed on Aave governance, or what do you mean by that?
It's Neon Foundation. Let's say there are still no Neon DAO. We are just setting it up.
Okay, Neon Foundation made a
Neon
proposal.
Foundation made a proposal to Aave forum, yeah,
to get Aave to see if Aave would want to multi-chain deploy onto Neon EVM. And what was the outcome?
It was passed with mostly yes. Temperature check proposal was passed.
So would you say that Neon EVM is the premier EVM smart contract on Solana?
Yeah. Should I explain how it works on Solana? Would you like to go deeper, or
Sure. I imagine the way that you did it is you re-implemented Geth, but as a Solana smart contract.
Basic concepts here. So Neon EVM is a smart contract on Solana, and you can treat it like an ordinary program on Solana. And at the same time, it allows to execute any EVM bytecode inside of it. So from end user perspective or from development perspective, it means you have the upfront end or something that sends Ethereum transactions. In the middle between Solana and Ethereum app, we have our own proxy that wraps Ethereum-like transactions into Solana transactions and send it to Solana. For sure, without modification of these transactions. So it's signed by users, just wrapped to Solana, to looks like Solana transactions and sent to Solana. Solana send this transaction to Neon EVM smart contract, Neon EVM unwrap it and executes inside of Solana. It means that it's not a layer 2. So sometimes developers think of Neon EVM as like an L2. No, it's not an L2. It's
on Solana.
So that it's not L2. It's just executing inside of Solana. So
it's a Solana dApp.
Yeah, it's a Solana dApp. Just executed using Solana transactions, Solana consensus mechanism, and storage of Solana.
Are you aware that Eclipse was going to take Neon EVM and the SVM, whatever, MoveVM, and putting it onto Celestia instead for DA instead of Solana?
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic for sure. We in tight contact with Eclipse, and especially for us, it looks like a modular narrative, like Optimism stack, when a lot of projects forking Optimism and running something on Optimism stack. For us, it looks like Eclipse is the first who tried to do the same with Neon EVM and Solana. They're trying to use our stack, like Optimism stack, and yeah, we're in the contact of Eclipse. For us, it means like expanding ways of usage Neon. So not only running the apps on Neon, but creating a lot of other layers, blockchains using Neon software.
Are you a zealot in believing in the monolithic thesis or the modular thesis, or are you more agnostic?
More modular.
More modular, but then running on Solana.
What do you mean?
Neon EVM is running in Solana. But if you believe in the modular thesis, then how is it that you didn't just build an EVM on?
They are okay. They're not contradicting this thesis. Like you can, like Optimism, you have Optimism on Ethereum, and you have optimistic stack that everyone can fork and use to run their own chain. The same is Neon. So we are mostly focusing on, for sure, growing Neon ecosystem on Solana.
Oh, you're defining modularity from the basis of ability to fork your code?
No.
No.
For Neon EVM, for sure, our intention to grow on Solana.
So that's monolithic.
Yes. Yeah, but also it can be forked like Optimism stack or like anything other and used by other players.
Okay.
Yeah, that you can take this like Neon. Neon is adapter, right? It's a smart contract on Solana. But at the same time, you can like deploy it on any SVM chain and have this adapter like on Eclipse or anywhere else, and leverage the kind of modular approach instead of monolithic. It will be deployed somewhere.
Was it clear or not? Yeah.
I guess Solana now is like the main data availability layer. It's not even DA layer because like the Neon transactions are settled directly on Solana, just like an adapter.
Are there any other milestones that you guys want to discuss before we close?
I'd like to bring 2 points here for our upcoming, let's say, roadmap. First of all, it's very correlated with deBridge. First of all, we are going to launch multi-token payment. It means users will be able to pay in any tokens. From the end user perspective, it means like user transfer their native, let's say, USDC using deBridge and get native USDC on Solana and can pay for any transactions with these USDCs without need to buy gas token Neon.
Great.
The first milestone. And second, we are going to provide interoperability with Solana smart contracts. It means we call it composability. It means any smart contract on Neon EVM can run smart contract on Solana and vice versa.
You need to clarify that. So anything that runs basically a sub-smart contract of the Neon EVM contract can deploy another dApp on Solana again?
No, I mean, from developer perspective, it means you can run cross-chain arbitrage between Neon and Ethereum and Solana natively on Neon, for instance. So any smart contract on Neon can run any smart contract on Solana and vice versa. You can make arbitrage.
Make calls to.
Call methods. Yeah, make calls to, yeah.
Make calls to. Doesn't that introduce reentrancy attack vectors that you might not want?
No, not exactly. It means it usually calls interoperability when you have ability to call methods from other blockchain.
But it's in the same blockchain. In Solana.
In Solana. We are going to provide this functionality. It means...
So what do you imagine the benefits are?
Any protocols from Solana side will have access to Ethereum applications on Neon direct. And any applications from Neon can do the same. So for instance, I don't know. Do you know Orca, Radium, and Solana?
Orca, Radio?
Radium. It's
Radium. Radium. Oh, the DEX. Yeah. Okay,
yeah. So for instance, you can make arbitrage between Uniswap fork on Neon EVM and Radium on Solana in one transaction.
I would imagine that if that Jupiter would just aggregate all of these, and then you could just arbitrage from there. Yeah,
good example. To provide access for Jupiter to Neon EVM tools, you need this composability. Yeah.
Oh,
you need
see.
Ability to run contracts on Neon EVM site. So as soon as we have compatibility, Jupiter will be able to aggregate all liquidity on Neon too.
Got it.
So yeah, I guess what you're explaining that like within the same chain, we have like synchronous composability, right? Where we can like pack multiple transaction calls in a single transaction or like do various actions in a single block. So with Neon, like smart contracts on Neon EVM are going to be like synchronously composable with any smart contracts or programs on Solana. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, exciting. I've used Jupiter, great project, great UX. I did see that deBridge consistently has the lowest fees, although it does come down to at the lower end of the bridging cost. It's usually $95 to bridge. Is that from gas fees on the Ethereum side, or like why does it come up to that much money?
Not really. There is no like minimal limit. When you bridge, there is like additional operational expenses that is laid into the spread of the order, because like market maker, like when you bridge from expensive chain like Ethereum, right, the market maker needs to fulfill your trade on the destination chain on Solana and then send a cross-chain message to unlock liquidity on Ethereum. And that unlock operation has price because like market makers.
So you're as a bridge user, you're paying a taker fee.
It's not a taker fee. It's taker operational cost, basically gas cost of the market maker. And when you're bridging to Ethereum, and if the gas price on Ethereum is high, you got to cover that cost, right? And that cost is just like included into the spread of the order. But like that's kind of the same problem on the other bridges as well. It's just like Ethereum can be expensive, prices go up, and you need to claim your transaction on the destination chain. That's the trade-off of using like expensive chains like Ethereum. But at the same time, if you bridge to other chains, it's like this gas cost is very low. It can be sense.
Especially if you transfer to Neon chain.
Yeah, like Neon, because
it can be, yeah.
Can be expensive?
No. I mean, using Neon, it will be all transactions, like portion of cents.
Yeah, because it's basically
0.1, 0.2 cents. Yeah.
It's the same value add as wanting to bridge your ETH over to any rollup.
Chjango, and I remember you were also surprised when you heard that like $500 million like was processed without any collateral from validators. Actually, like the interesting factor that like right now, none of the generalized message transfer layers provide any collateral.
They're a
Basically provide
completely
financial.
trusted model.
Yeah, you trust the reputation, right? You bear assumption that validators will never collude. And so far, there is no single breach that would provide any insurance or financial guarantee. There is no like liquid slashable collateral. Some leverage this POS model, like proof of stake. But the problem of POS for breach that like it opened the attack vector on governance because you can hatch the cost of attack through perps. Basically, you can acquire a big stake of the governance token, and at the same time, like hatch on the perp trading platforms, right? That's why we believe that like the collateral should be in liquid assets, such as like USDC and ETH, and this like projects token part of the collateral should be like really limited or capped. And one of the goals in deBridge right now is like to decentralize governance because like stage one during the last 3 years was to build, the secure foundation and infrastructure that can scale. And the stage number 2 is basically to grow the community and pass the governance to future token holders. And I don't know if you've seen the post of Mao, like the Mao co-founder of Jupiter yesterday, but basically deBridge was nominated as one of the candidates to be like the first project on Jupiter LFG launchpad. And basically one of our goals is like to enable this decentralized governance, the pass control over the infrastructure to community, and at the same time secure the financial guarantees and collateral that going to be provided by validators. So deBridge going to be one of the first cross-chain infrastructure that not only had this like reputation of being very secure, bridge without any security incidents, but also the infrastructure that provides financial guarantees for anyone who transfers messages cross-chain. Because like at the end of the day, if you use messaging, what you care about is like how well your message value is insured. And that's one of the cornerstones of all the bridge providers.
With that, we'll close out this podcast. Thank you both so much for coming on. How can people find you?
You can find our website neonevm.org for sure.
For deBridge, you can find us all our social networks on our website, debridge.finance. We are debridge.finance on Twitter as well, and my personal Twitter account is Alex Smirnov. Anyone is interested in the cross-chain space or like having any interesting ideas or something to build, feel free to reach out.